owls, today we leave Earth behind and travel millions of kilometers away to the Red Planet. This is the story of Elias Thorne. The only man on Mars. Elias was a geologist. He lived in Ares Station, a small metal dome near the base of Mount Olympus Mons. He had been there for 2 years. 2 years without rain. 2 years without trees. 2 years without seeing another human face. The silence on Mars was heavy. It wasn't peaceful like silence in a library. It was a cold, dead silence. His routine was always the same. Wake up, check the oxygen levels, eat freeze-dried food, and collect soil samples. The view outside his window was always the same, an endless ocean of red dust and red rocks. But one Tuesday, the silence broke. Elias was in the communication room, listening to the static from Earth. He was waiting for a message from his daughter, Maya. It was her birthday. But instead of Maya's voice, the speakers made a strange sound. Thump, thump, da. It wasn't static. It was a rhythm. It sounded like a heartbeat. Elias looked at the monitor. The signal wasn't coming from Earth. The coordinates showed the origin point was right beneath his feet. It wasn't coming from space. It was coming from deep underground. Elias checked his equipment. The signal was very weak. He couldn't just go outside. The storms on Mars were dangerous. Instead, he activated Beetle 4, his rover robot. Beetle 4, come online, Elias commanded. The screen lit up. The robot's camera turned on. Targeting signal, Elias said to the computer. He typed the coordinates. The robot rolled out of the airlock. Elias watched the screen. The robot drove over the red rocks. It moved towards a deep crater nearby. The signal got stronger as the rover descended into the crater. I am detecting a cave entrance, the computer announced. The rover entered the cave. It was dark, so Elias turned on the headlights. The beams of light cut through the darkness. The cave walls were smooth, as if they had been melted by heat millions of years ago. Then, the camera saw something. Deep inside the cave, there was a soft blue glow. It was pulsing like a breathing lung. Video recording, Elias whispered. He leaned closer to the screen. The rover rounded a corner and stopped. There, sitting on a pedestal of crystal, was a small orb-shaped object. It was the size of a basketball. It was glowing blue. And floating around it were tiny glowing letters. Not letters made of stone, but letters made of light. Elias's hands began to shake. This wasn't natural. This wasn't a rock. This was technology. Elias tried to translate the symbols. They weren't an alien language. They were mathematical. Universal math, geometry. It was a universal language. Suddenly, the orb pulsed. A sound came through the speakers. It wasn't a voice, but a melody. It was beautiful and sad at the same time. Then the holographic letters rearranged themselves in front of the camera. They projected images into the cave. Elias gasped. He saw the red planet. But it wasn't red. It was green. He saw oceans. He saw forests. He saw tall cities with spires reaching the clouds. He saw creatures. They were tall, slender, and elegant. They were looking at the sky. The images moved fast. Then came the dark times. The sun grew hotter. The oceans dried up. The atmosphere faded away. The cities were buried in dust. The images showed the survivors. They built a machine. They went deep underground. They put themselves into a deep sleep, waiting for the planet to heal. They waited for millions of years. Elias realized the truth. The orb wasn't just a machine. It was a library, a time capsule, and the glowing light was the energy of a soul, the last survivor. The melody changed. It became a question. It wasn't asking for help. It was asking, is anyone still alive? Elias felt a tear roll down his cheek. He was millions of kilometers away from home, but he had never felt less alone in his life. He touched the screen. Yes, he whispered. I am here. The orb pulsed brighter. The message changed again. A new set of images appeared. It showed a map. Not a map of Mars, it showed a map of the stars. A path. The message was clear. The civilization was gone. The planet was dead. But their knowledge didn't have to die. The orb detached from its pedestal. It floated towards the rover. The rover's robotic arm opened automatically. The orb settled gently into the claw. Elias stared at the screen. The orb was giving itself to him. It contained the history, the science, the art, and the soul of an entire world. I can't take you, Elias said. My ship is too small. It doesn't have enough power. The orb flashed. It projected a blueprint. It showed Elias how to modify his ship's engine. It showed him how to use the orb itself as an energy source. It was a trade. The orb wanted to leave Mars. It wanted to be remembered. And Elias was the only one who could carry its memory. I promise, Elias said, his voice cracking. I will take you to Earth. I will tell your story. You will not be forgotten. The blue light swirled around the rover. The rover turned around and drove out of the cave, climbing back up to the surface. Elias worked for 3 days straight. He didn't sleep. He didn't eat. He followed the blueprints. He installed the orb into the engine room of his shuttle. The orb hummed with power. The energy levels jumped from 20% to 500%. The engine glowed blue. This is Elias Thorne, he spoke into the radio. I am initiating emergency launch. I have a passenger. I'm coming home. He strapped himself into the pilot's seat. The engines roared to life. The red dust swirled around the ship. The ship lifted off, leaving the red silence behind. As the ship ascended, Elias looked out the window. Mars grew smaller, a lonely red ball, but he didn't feel sad anymore. The orb was pulsing in the engine room. He could hear the ancient melody in his head. It was a song of hope. He wasn't just bringing a rock back to Earth. He was bringing a legacy. A world that lived once and would live again through stories. When Elias landed on Earth, scientists swarmed the shuttle. But he didn't let them touch the orb. It's not a weapon, he told them. It's a friend. It's the last of its kind. And it deserves to be heard. And for the first time in human history, Earth learned from Mars. We learned that even when a world dies, its memory can live on. If there is someone left to tell the story,